The Trump administration travel ban goes into effect. We'll have details. A Nigerian photographer fights extremism, one picture at a time. And how a martial art is helping African American youth connect with their ancestors. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Heidi Adams-Fitzpatrick in for Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. The Trump administration's travel ban is now in effect. Now, it's not just where you're coming from, but who you are related to that could determine whether you can visit, live, work or study in the United States. The 90-day ban took effect Thursday night, along with a 120-day ban on all refugees. On Monday, the U.S. Supreme Court revived part of President Donald Trump's travel ban on people from 6 Muslim-majority countries, including Libya, Sudan and Somalia. It means people from these countries who do not have close family or business relationships in the U.S. can be barred entry or denied visas. Here's who can enter: parents, spouses, fiancés, sons and daughters-in-law or siblings. But grandparents, grandchildren, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, in-laws and extended families will not be granted entry. The executive order does not affect people who already have valid visas or green cards. The Supreme Court is expected to make a final decision on the ban in October. The United States is criticizing Sudan's human rights record ahead of a deadline to lift sanctions against that country. In January, the outgoing Obama administration gave Sudan 180 days to improve its record and resolve its political and military conflicts. With that deadline fast approaching, the U.S. Embassy in Khartoum says it wants to see the Sudanese government make stronger progress towards these goals. Rights watchdog The Enough Project is now calling on the Trump administration to delay the decision on lifting sanctions for 6 months, considering that key administration officials for Africa are not yet in place. The United Nations says up to 300,000 people have been killed and millions displaced during the conflict in Darfur. On Thursday, the Security Council voted unanimously to cut the peacekeeping mission in Sudan's Darfur region by nearly 30%. Human rights experts say a UN withdrawal could put many civilians in danger. The European Union says it will support Italy as that country continues to admit thousands of migrants every day from North Africa crossing the Mediterranean Sea. Italy has threatened to shut its ports to foreign registered boats carrying migrants. So far this year, close to 80,000 people have made the journey and over 2,000 have died. Henry Ridgwell reports from London.
Most of the tens of thousands of people plucked from the Mediterranean this week have been taken to ports on the Italian coast. They are severely dehydrated, usually malnourished and suffering from infections and skin diseases. Marcella Cray of Doctors Without Borders spoke to VOA via Skype from the group's rescue ship Aquarius as it disembarked more than 1,000 migrants at the Italian port of Corigliano Calabro.
We also see the results of people actually being physically assaulted, sexually assaulted, tortured.
Italy's representative to the European Union has warned that the situation is unsustainable and threatened to stop vessels of other countries from bringing migrants to its ports. Cray sympathises with Italy's position.
We have not in any way been formally informed of this by the Italian government. So we'll have to see what actually happens. But my first impression of this is that the main thing is that it's actually a cry for help coming from the Italian government. And it would be actually good for other EU member states to take a bit more responsibility.
The EU Commissioner for Migration offered Italy his support.
Italy is under huge pressure, and we're not going to leave this country alone.
Italy is obliged to take in the migrants, says refugee law expert Jeff Gilbert of the University of Essex, also via Skype.
The law of the sea, international refugee law and international human rights law are all coming into play together. While I have a lot of sympathy for the Italian situation, I do not believe Italy can send back boats, even boats that are seaworthy, into the Mediterranean.
Gilbert says Rome is likely trying to force the implementation of the 2015 EU agreement to share refugees across the bloc, which has so far made little progress. This week, more than 400 migrants in Italy clashed with police at the French border, demanding to be allowed through.
No France, no Italy, no Italia.
Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
Moving to South Africa now, the National Policy Conference of the African National Congress only happens once every 5 years. That's why there is so much at stake as they convene in Johannesburg on Friday. The ANC brought democracy to South Africa on the promise of a better life for all. 20 years later, the economy and the currency are in trouble. Crime, unemployment and corruption all remain high. But the 5-day conference is likely to be overshadowed by a power struggle to succeed President Jacob Zuma as party leader. Well, here to help us, he is a political analyst from the University of the Witwatersrand. He speaks to us via Skype from Johannesburg, South Africa. Patrick, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks. Great to be with you and the viewers.
So much at stake here and so many overlapping issues. There is the frenzy over whether Jacob Zuma will in effect wreck the ANC's election chances in 2019. There is also President Zuma's promise of radical economic transformation. How is all this going to play out at this conference, and what does it mean for the ANC's policy development?
Well, the critical recent factor has been about 200,000 emails leaked that implicate Zuma and a great many of the top bureaucrats and politicians in connection with an immigrant family, the Gupta family, 3 brothers from India. And what these emails dripping out day by day as a large team of journalists dissects them, sort of like a WikiLeaks, it really looks very bad for Zuma's claim that he had no wrongdoing, nor did his inner circles, in relation to state capture, as the phrase is, by this group. And that is what is making the ANC so very nervous, that his continued tenure in office as president until the general elections of 2019 would actually doom the ANC, and there may be a coalition that could actually, for the first time since 1994, replace him. And it's that systematic corruption as against what Zuma and his people and the Gupta brothers and the Bell Pottinger PR firm from Britain have developed, that is the meme radical economic transformation, as a sort of counter-argument that the so-called white monopoly capital of settler capital, whites who've been here for generations, as well as multinational capital and banks, are all up against Jacob Zuma, and therefore he is an anti-imperialist. He's got the BRICS group, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, against the West, and that's his line of argument. We call this a talk left, but walk right.
Is this a make or break moment for Zuma, though? You talk about there's lots of nervousness. Is Jacob Zuma, does he have any reason to be nervous? And does the party as a whole have reason to be nervous, considering the recent electoral losses and declines that the ANC has been seeing?
Well, that's right, Heidi. The 2016 municipal election, it was last August, did see a dramatic decline from, at one point, a high of 69% of the votes 15 or so years ago, down to just 54% of the votes in the municipal elections last year. So it could well be that that trajectory brings them down below the 50% mark. And as in Johannesburg and Pretoria, possibly a far-left plus center-right coalition actually booting out the ANC from government. That's their worst-case scenario. And the question is whether Jacob Zuma would actually stick around till 2019. His future is in doubt if he is bringing the ANC so far down. And that partly depends, will his successor be his ex-wife, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, the recent African Union chairperson, or will it be the deputy president, favored by big business, his name Cyril Ramaphosa? But he's implicated in the Marikana massacre of mine workers who were on a wildcat strike, 34 of them killed by the police just one day after he, as the main minority owner of Lonmin, the big mining house, emailed the police to say, let's do something about what he called the dastardly criminals. And so both these candidates have big question marks, and it may be that a third unknown candidate comes through in December. That's when the next big ANC political congress is held to set the stage for a new president who would then run in 2019 to replace Zuma. Will Zuma bring the whole party down with the continuation of this ongoing scandal? That's what we're going to learn in the coming months.
And we're going to watch all of that very closely. Patrick Bond, political economist and professor from the University of the Witwatersrand, thank you so very much for talking to us. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and, of course, the stories we cover here. You can join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share the show with your friends. Also, check our headlines out 24/7 on voaafrica.com. So we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, how a young Nigerian photographer is challenging the perception of her hometown. Stay with us.
I wanted to present music and a side of American culture that is most important to me, that is a part of who I am. They're going to get some incredible performances. That's one of the things I love, bringing these artists in so you can get to see them do what they do. It's soul music, and that's what music is. It's that which comes from the soul.
Welcome back. In our Friday business report, U.S. stocks opened higher on the last day of the second quarter and first half of 2017. And let's go into the details. Here's Africa 54's business correspondent, Jill Malandrino, reporting from the NASDAQ in New York.
Good morning from the NASDAQ market site. U.S. stocks open higher to close out the last day of trading for June and the second half of 2017, which has really been quite an astounding year for stocks. The S&P 500 is up nearly 9%, led by financials and tech stocks. Really, the NASDAQ listed heavyweights have been the story driving this market. Stocks like Apple, Alphabet, Netflix, Amazon, and we expect to continue to see that trend. Now, as we look into July and the second half of 2017, July is really going to be a busy month for traders as they look to the all-important employment report, which is due out on July 7th, this Friday, and then we kick into earnings on July 10th. So we really have a lot of data points coming on for traders to kick off July and the second half of the year. The employment report on Friday, what we're really going to be looking for here is wage growth, because that has been what's stagnant and keeping inflation down. So those are really the two important points that economists and traders will be looking at. As a reminder, we are going to close on the U.S. markets at 1:30 p.m. Eastern on Monday, and we'll be closed all day, including all federal jobs as well, for the Independence Day holiday. So we will have a nice long holiday weekend in the U.S. Have a good weekend. I'm Jill Malandrino from the NASDAQ market site, and this is Africa 54 Business News.
Moving to northern Nigeria now, and the capital of Borno State, Maiduguri, has been at the center of conflict that has cost thousands of lives and displaced millions of people. For about 7 years now, Boko Haram has been waging an insurgency in the region in the hopes of creating a strict Islamic state. But amid the turmoil, there is hope in a little town known to locals as Yerwa. One young photographer is challenging what she calls the one-dimensional perception of her hometown. VOA's Jackson Mbunganye has more.
These days, Maiduguri is synonymous with images of violence and conflict, a narrative that overshadows its rich history and culture. But Fatih Abubakar, a young nurse from the area, wants to show the other side of life in a town that has struggled to shed an image of a war-torn community gripped by violence and conflict. Fatih is using photography to show the outside world that life in her hometown continues despite the ongoing conflict.
It was at a time when I was struggling with the images and the headlines and all of the statistics coming in from Borno State. And when I finally went home in 2015, May 2015, I discovered that there was a complete focus on it was one-dimensional reporting. It was very narrow and we were not getting the full story. So I felt like it was essential for me as someone who was coming there to take control of how we are, not only how we we're viewed, but also what the real happening is, to get a holistic approach and also tell a balanced story about everyday life and what everything else that is happening within Borno State.
Fati, a nurse by profession, took an interest in photography and visual storytelling after taking a course in social media during her master's in public health program. On her return to Maiduguri, she started taking photographs of people engaging in daily activities. She says that it's a side that most mainstream media outlets rarely show.
It was very accidental. It happened while I was, studying for public health masters, and my background is in nursing. It's completely different, but I feel that both medicine and media can merge eventually, so that you can talk about not only your communities, problems, but also their health issues along the way.
What other stories in Maiduguri do you feel like people should be focusing on that we are missing by focusing on the other story, the story of Boko Haram?
Well, I think that because of all the stories that we're getting from mainstream media, I personally thought that we ran the risk of being completely seen as a conflict zone for the rest of our lives. It is very important that you see people thriving even in the midst of all of this conflict. So there are stories like, children going to school. It might be normal to somebody else, but I personally feel it is important that people see, even as all of this is happening, we have children going to school, businesses still opening, we have the government still working as it should, and we also not only have, I do a couple of series every week, and I also post, stories that I feel are incredible. Like currently I'm doing a series on rappers. This is something that,
rappers, musicians.
Yes, musicians.
In Maiduguri.
In Maiduguri, yes. People will not expect to see something like that in a conflict zone.
Absolutely.
The local population in Maiduguri is a mix of mainly Muslim Kanuri and Shua people. It was once a hub of commerce in the region, but since 2010, the narrative of conflict has overshadowed this city of almost 2 million people. Fati hopes that the world can begin focusing on the other side of this historic town, a side that is not of misery and suffering.
The insurgency has devastated our community. I don't want to sugarcoat. Economy is down. It is difficult to do all of the things that you used to. It is very tense. It is not the commercial hub that we used to know. So it has definitely been, it has deteriorated, but it is also important for me to talk about not only the destruction, but also the strength that we're seeing come from our people because of the insurgency. So the resilience and everything else needs to be documented. It is not as it was, but we're seeing a slow but steady change towards, getting back to where we were.
What should Maiduguri be known for aside from those other stories that we hear about in the media?
Well, before Boko Haram, we were known for our fantastic, fabulous weddings. It was very colorful. We were known for our hospitality. We were known for trade. So that is what I want people to identify Borno State with, for us to be seen as business-minded people who are still, have a big commercial city. That's what I want people to see us as.
With a rich history.
With a rich history. We have a dynasty also. We have attire that is beautiful. We have cultural artifacts. So there's a lot of things that we can be viewed. Our food is incredible. We're known for cooking the best food. So that is what I want people to remember Borno State. And I hope that through the project, we can kind of help rekindle all of that.
VOA's Jackson Mungani there. Still to come on Africa 54, we'll show you how a martial art with a Brazilian heart is helping African-American youth connect with the continent. Back in a moment. You're with Africa 54. Welcome back. Let's look at what is trending. Her name's Ruby and she's lucky to be alive. Her mom says that's largely thanks to an app. The free app called Count the Kicks aims to prevent stillborn deaths by helping moms record their baby's movements. Used at the same time every day, the app tracks how long it takes to reach 10 kicks, helping moms learn what's normal for their baby. This mother knew from the app that her baby normally kicks 10 times in under 10 minutes. So when she only logged 3 kicks in an hour, she was rushed to the hospital. Count the Kicks is just one of a growing number of apps helping parents through pregnancy and labor. Well, a new Lebanese startup is attracting shoppers living in Lebanon who want to buy goods from abroad, as well as travelers who want to make a little bit of extra money while on their trip. On Your Way features a website that lets people describe what they need and where from. It also offers financial reward for the traveler willing to pick it up for them. Shoppers pay on the website and the money is released to the traveler once the delivery is complete. On Your Way charges a fixed amount of $6 for every successful transaction, plus a 7% charge of the order value. And finally, the first ever Artificial Intelligence Expo is underway in Tokyo. Japanese logistics solution company Vinx collaborated with artificial intelligence developer Sensi to create the robot sommelier, which can blend a glass of wine to your specific tastes by asking you to fill out a questionnaire following a short tasting session. The system is already being used in a department store in Tokyo, which has seen a 48% rise in sales since it was put to work last August. Also on show was Hong Kong-based SenseTime's version of a security guard called SenseGuard, an intelligent access control system that uses artificial intelligence to recognize someone's face. And that is what is trending today. Now for a story that has nothing to do with robots. Capoeira is a well-known Brazilian martial art developed by slaves brought from Africa and spread across the world. Here in Washington, it's helping young Americans of African descent connect with the culture and traditions of their forebears. This report by VOA's Meira Fernandez.
Liberation. That's really it. Liberation and community. Right now in this country, there's chaos, there's separation. People are realizing that things that we thought were in repair aren't really in repair. But we're also realizing that we're disconnected, that black communities in this country are falling apart. There's no more Harlem. DC is in Chocolate City. Oakland is in Oakland. And we need help. We need to realize how we can reconnect, how we could build community. And Capoeira started with that. It started with people who are of disconnected origins, who were in a foreign land under foreign rule and needed something, and needed an identity and something that they could grasp onto and something to hand on to their children and family to make them stronger. So that's what I'm looking for today.
From Angola with love, stopping by Brazil and regaining its force with axés and mandingas to the sound of berimbaus, atabaques and pandeiros, Capoeira is well known as a Brazilian martial art developed by slaves brought from Africa and spread all over the world. It's a dance, it's music, it's acrobatics, it's a fighting in a circle, all combined to what capoeiristas call jogo, or game in English. Created by African slaves to protect themselves, Capoeira was designed to look like a dance so it wouldn't be noticed by their masters. Its origins take us to the 16th century, when African slaves were taken to Brazil to work in sugarcane fields. But let's rewind a little. If you like fast jumping in the air, full of ginga, an Afro-Brazilian expression for movement, and white clothes, you are a Capoeira Regional fan. If you like slow, intense, dance close to the floor and yellow clothes, then Capoeira Angola will conquer you.
Tudo é diferente na Angola. Angola is different. You won't have an experience like Capoeira Angola in your life, and if you try it, you'll find that you'll have an experience that is outside of the norm of society, and you might enjoy it.
There's something about the jovial nature the slyness of it, the stories, the mystery, the mystique of it that just drew me in immediately. And I feel like not only are you learning a lot about yourself, but you're learning a lot about a whole other world or alternative universe of feelings and emotions and perspectives that are deeply rooted in African mysticism and culture.
A lot of people, blacks in America, are always looking for some way to get back to their roots, something that kind of connects them. So I thought it was fitting that capoeira was banned in Brazil before being allowed for all Brazilians to participate in, because so many aspects of Black American life were banned before being opened up and, you know, allowing us to vote, allowing us to come in and drink the same water fountains, use the same restrooms.
Universal Capoeira Angola Center is one of many schools in the community of capoeiristas in Washington, D.C. Students of different generations cross at the center, following Mestre Pastinha legacy.
I was the first kid ever to really come to this school, and at first I was intimidated, but I really appreciate it because I don't think I would get the same experience, and I wouldn't be as experienced had I trained with other children or other teenagers. When I train with adults, I really get a taste of what it is like in the capoeira roda, what mestres can be like, what professores can be like. If I were with other children, it wouldn't be quite the same.
Brings together so many different backgrounds to play Capoeira Angola, teaching the music, the instrument, and the sense of humility that we are hearing so much.
Finding myself, who I am as a black man in the struggle, you know what I mean? It gave me a sense of identity, you know what I mean? Because the roots goes back so far in capoeira, I couldn't believe, you know, that I'm doing this beautiful martial art and it's so powerful and so spiritual, you know?
In Washington, D.C. for 22 years, Daley Marcelin says he just created the environment. Capoeira will grab you.
Capoeira is for everybody, but everybody is not for capoeira. You know what I mean? Capoeira pulls you into it. All I do is make a comfortable environment where people could come sing and have a good time, enjoy themselves, you know? And capoeira would, like a snake, capoeira would grab you.
That report there from VOA's Mera Fernandez. And that is where we will leave it. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website, voaafrica.com. For more news, tune into VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. From all of us here in Washington, thank you very much for joining us. Good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Most people enjoy listening to music. But is this expression actually about songs and tunes?
Music to my ears.
Jonathan, I cannot believe we have to work over the weekend.
Did you not hear the news? The meeting for the project got canceled. No work this weekend after all.
Awesome! That is music to